Today I'll be solving questions with their study guide. I want you to keep in mind that when we're solving equations today, you order them in the way that we've talked about them in class. This is the practice getting ready for your test. Let's begin. We have negative 12x equals negative 144. I begin by drawing a line through my equal sign. Think about what you have to do next. If you said divide because you're multiplying, then you were correct. We represent division in algebra by drawing a line underneath our coefficient. You're not just dividing by 12, but negative 12. The 12 cancel out. Now we have negative 144 is equal negative 144 divided by negative 12. So we divide, and we're left with x is equal to 12. You can check your answer by plugging in 12 in for x. Number 2. We have an equal sign here, so we have an equation. I'll begin by drawing a line through my equal sign to separate the left from the right. Next, I decide what operation is happening. If you said we're dividing, that's correct. So we do the opposite of division and we multiply. If I multiply the left side by 2, I have to multiply the right side by 2. So now I have 23, negative 23, times 2. And I get negative 46. Therefore, x is equal to negative 46. Number 3. 23 minus 4x equals 27. I'll begin by drawing a line through my equal sign, separating the left side from the right side. Keep in mind, the left side is the same as the right side. Now, I look for things I could cancel out, and I notice that I have a 23 here. Keep in mind that there's a plus in front of this 23. Since I have plus 23 here, I have to minus 23. These 23's cancel out. If I minus 22 from this side, I have to minus 23 from the other side. 27 minus 23 is 4. Now I have to bring down the entire coefficient, including the sign in front. Now I have negative 4x is equal to 4. Again, I ask myself what operation is happening here. If you said multiplication, that's correct. Now we can divide. Dividing cancels out our number in front of our letter. If I divide by negative 4 on the left side, I have to do the same thing on the right side. So x is equal to negative 1. Number 4. Negative 5x plus 4x minus 3 plus 2 plus 3y. The first thing I want to do is I want to turn all my minuses into plus and negatives. Okay, so this is a minus here, so I'll use keep, change, change. Okay, so I'm okay now. Next thing I'll think about is whether or not I have any variables without any numbers in front. I don't. Okay, so now I can combine like terms. Let's see, I'll begin with negative 5x plus 4x. Negative 5x plus 4x is negative 1x. Then I look for other things I can combine. Okay, so I'm going to go to variables next, and I see that I have plus 3y, but there's no other numbers I can combine with 3y. So I just write it down here. Finally, I have negative 3 plus 2. Negative 3 plus 2 is plus a negative 1. You can also write this as negative 1x plus 3y minus 1, which is the same thing. Because remember, plus and negative is the same thing as subtracting 1. Number 5. I have 25 is equal to 50 over x. I notice that I have an equation here. So I'll draw a line through my equal sign. Next, I look at the number on the bottom of my fraction, and I realize that it's the letter x. Okay, so to cancel out my x here, I multiply both sides by x. My x's cancel out on the right side. I'm going to rewrite what I have here. So now I have 25x is equal to 50. Now I have a one-step equation. I draw a line through my equal sign. I recognize that I'm multiplying, so I divide. The 25's cancel out. Now I have 50 divided by 25. 50 divided by 25 is 2. You can check your answer by plugging in 2 for x and seeing that 50 divided by 2 is 25. We have negative 25, parentheses 25, minus x, close parentheses. What's different about this question than the ones we've been doing earlier? If you said there's no equal sign, then you were correct. So let's begin. So what do we do first here? The first thing we want to do is use the distributive property. I multiply 5 times 25 and get 125. Now remember, a negative times a positive equals a negative. Next, I'll multiply the 5 times the x. It's important to understand that we need to treat this minus x here as a negative. So we have negative 5 times negative x, which equals a negative times a negative, is a plus 5x. Now notice how there's no equal sign, so there's nothing else we can do with this expression here. Remember, expressions are problems that don't have equal signs, so therefore we're finished, and we cannot combine any more like terms. Number 7. 2x minus 14 equals 10. I have an equal sign here, so I'll draw a line through my equal sign, separating the left from the right. Next, I'll focus on numbers without letters, and I'll add 14 to both sides. (10 plus 14 equals 24. Next, I bring down my 2x. After that, I notice I'm multiplying. Therefore, I divide. And I'll divide by the number next to my letter. After that, I'll divide by 2 on the right side. 24 divided by 2 is 12. X is equal to 12. Notice the Dorito formation that's forming on our two-step equations. Also notice how you can plug in 12 for x, and it will equal 10. Let's begin by taking a look at question number 8. We have x over 4 plus 25 equals negative 5. The first thing I'll do is notice I have an equal sign. So I'll draw a line through my equal sign, separating the left side from the right side. Next, I have plus 25, so I'll minus 25 from the left side. If I minus 25 from the left side, I need to minus 25 from the right side. So I have negative 5 minus 25. Keep, change, change, which gives me negative 30 is equal to 8x over 4. After that, I recognize that I have x over 4, and this line means division. Therefore, I have to multiply. If I multiply by 4 on the left side, I have to multiply by 4 on the right side. The 4's cancel out. Now I do 30 times 4, which is 120. Now remember that a negative times a positive is a negative. So therefore, this needs to be negative 120. Number 9. X plus 4 over 7 is equal to negative 5. Now this equation is set up a little bit differently than the ones we've been practicing. Notice how we have x plus 4 over 7. We're going to have to begin our equation by multiplying first. So this one is just one of those ones that are going to be a little bit different than the rest. Multiplying by 7 on the left side cancels out the 7's. if we multiply by 7 on the left side, we multiply by 7 on the right side. I rewrite what I have. And negative 5 times 7 is negative 35. Next, I realize I have a one-step equation. Draw a line through my equal sign. If I'm adding 4, I have to minus 4. If I minus 4 from the left side, I need to minus 4 from the right side. Negative 35 minus 4. Since it's a subtraction sign, I use keep, change, change to get negative 39. X is equal to negative 39. Once again, you can check your answer by plugging in x is negative 39 in for the variable here. Number 10. 2 parentheses x minus 7 plus 2x equals 10. I recognize I have distributive property here, so I'm going to have to do that first. Think about what you're supposed to do when you're using a distributive property. To begin, we're going to have to multiply the 2 times x. And we get 2x. Next, we'll multiply 2 times not just 7, we're going to need to treat this minus as a negative to make negative 14. Next, we write down our 2x. Now we have 2x minus 14 plus 2x equals 10. After that, I'll turn on my minuses and the plus and negatives. This is a minus 14, so I'll do keep, change, change. Now we're ready to solve our equation. I'll begin by combining like terms. 2x plus 2x equals 4x. I'll rewrite what I have. Now I have 4x plus negative 14 is equal to 10. When I'm solving equations that have plus and negative, I look at the sign closest to the number. Since it's a negative, I need to add 14. If I add 14 on the left side, I need to add 14 on the right side. 10 plus 14 is 24. I bring down my 4x, and these 14s cancel out. After that, I have a one-step equation. I can begin by dividing both sides by 4. 24 divided by 4 is 6. So then my answer is 6. Number 11. I have 120 is equal to 210 fewer than you. I'll begin by looking at my math in the words paper. I recognize that is means equals, so I'll circle that. After that, I notice it says fewer. Which means subtract. Finally, I see the word than, and than is a turnaround word. So let's go ahead and write our equation. We have 120 is equal to 210 minus u. Now I have to turn around my equation. So I have 120 is equal to u minus 210. Since I have an equation, I can go ahead and solve for u. I draw a line through my equal sign. If I have a minus 210 here, I need to add 210 on the right side. If I add 210 on the right side, I add 210 on the left side. My 210s cancel out. I'm left with u is equal to 330. Let's take a look at number 12. Number 12 says the product of 2 and x is 100. I'll begin by identifying keywords. I know product means multiply. Of 2 and x is 100. And I also know That is means equals. So now I can write my equation. I have 2x is equal to 100. Now since I have my equation, I can go ahead and solve for x. I'm multiplying, so I divide by 2. If I divide by 2 on the left side, I need to divide by 2 on the right side. Therefore, x is equal to 50. Number 13. I'll begin by using the distributive property. Remember, the distributive property says to multiply the number outside of parentheses times the number on the inside. So I get negative 40x. The negative times the positive is negative 10. Now I have negative 40x minus 10 plus 15x equals 15. Next, I'll take my subtraction sign and turn it into plus and negative by using keep, change, change. After that, I'll look for things that are alike. I have negative 40x plus 15x. Negative 40x plus 15x is negative 25x. Now, I'll rewrite what I have. Since I have a two-step equation here, and it says plus and negative, I'll go ahead and do the opposite. Since it's a negative 10, I need to add 10 underneath. Since I added 10 here, these cancel out. Since I add 10 on the left side, I need to add 10 on the right side. 15 plus 10 equals 25. Negative 25x is equal to 25. After that, I realize I have a one-step equation. I divide by the number next to my letter, which is negative 25. If I divide by negative 25 on the left side, I divide by negative 25 on the right side. 25 divided by negative 25 is negative 1. So my answer is negative 1. Number 14. I have distributive property, so I'll begin by using that. Negative 2 times m is negative 2m. Negative 2 times negative 5 is a positive 10. Then I rewrite my 10 underneath. Now I have a one-step equation. I'll begin by doing opposite operations. If I add 10, I'll minus 10. If I minus 10 on the left side, I'll minus 10 on the right side. 10 minus 10 is equal to 0. Next, I bring down my 2m, my negative 2m, to get negative 2m is equal to 0. After that, I divide both sides by negative 2, and I'm left with 0 divided by negative 2, which is equal to 0. So my answer is m is equal to 0. Number 15. 50 is equal to 5 over x. Since I have 5 over x, and I'm dividing, I'll begin by multiplying both sides by x. If I multiply by x on the right side, I'll multiply by x on the left side. My x's cancel out. Now I rewrite this as 50x is equal to 5. Next, I recognize that I have a multiplication sign here, and I'm multiplying, so I divide both sides by the number next to my letter. If I divide by 50 on the left side, I need to divide by 50 on the right side. 5 over 50 simplified is equal to 1 over 10. Therefore, my answer is x is equal to 1 over 10. Number 16. A cornfield is 500 feet wide. If you know the perimeter is 1,600 feet, what is the cornfield's length? Write an equation and solve. I'm going to begin by identifying some key words. I noticed perimeter. Do you remember what perimeter means? Well, the perimeter is the outside of an area or a given space. So let's begin by identifying our width. So we know it's 500 here, and if you remember that a rectangle, two sides are just like the other two. And our total perimeter is 1,600 feet. So we know these two sides have to equal 1,600 feet in addition to these two. So these are our two unknowns here, our lengths. Now since we're using algebra, we're going to go ahead and set up an equation and solve. Of course you can solve this using arithmetic, but when it comes to our test, you want to make sure you understand how to set up an equation and solve for a variable. So let's go ahead and set up an equation. Let's begin with our perimeter, which is 1,600 feet. Next, I notice I see 500 two times. And that's going to be equal to our length, because that's what we're trying to find. That's our unknown. Now let's begin to simplify. 2 times 500 is 1,000. Next, I combine like terms to get 600 is equal to 2x. Finally, I isolate my variable and divide both sides by 2 to get x is equal to 300. You can check your answer by taking 300 and putting it in where x is. So 300 plus 300 equals 600. 500 plus 500 equals 1,000. And 600 plus 1,000 equals 1,600. Once again, our missing length is 300. Number 17. You decide to treat 3 of your friends to a trip to the local zoo using the money you received for your birthday. It costs $5.25 for admission plus $2.95 for the giraffe feeding experience per person. After walking around the zoo and feeding the giraffes, you purchase some snow cones for each person and yourself. How much did each snow cone cost? If you spend a total of $42.80. Create an equation and solve. I want to begin by identifying some key parts of this. Can you think of any key parts we can use in this story problem here? Well, the first thing I notice is that it's $5.25 per person. And how many people are going? Well, there's 3 plus 1 more makes 4. So I have 4 times $5.25 plus, then I notice that it's $2.95 for giraffe feeding, and again, there's 4 total people. 4 times $2.95. Now our unknown is our snow cone. And how many people are getting snow cones? There's 4. So we can write this as 4s. And then now it says the total, so that'll tell us that we're looking for the amount it's equal to, which is 42.80. This is 4s here. So since we have an equation, we can go ahead and solve for our variable s. Let's begin. So I start off by multiplying 4 times 5.25. Feel free to pause the video if you need extra time. I know that 4 times 5.25 is equal to 11.8. Next, I want to add 4 times 2.95, which I know equals 21. Finally, I have my coefficient, which is 4s, is equal to 42.80. After that, I can combine like terms. I have 11.8 plus 21, which is equal to 32.8, and I'll add a 0 on the end because we're talking about money. I bring down my 4s, and that's equal to 42.80. I look for anything else I can combine. Do you notice or think of maybe what you think about we can do next? Well, we have a two-step equation now. It can be begin by drawing a line through my equal sign, remembering that there's a plus in front of this 32.8, subtracting 32.8 from both sides. To get $10 is equal, these cancel out, to 4s. I still don't have my variable by itself, but I notice I have 4s is equal to 10. Next, I'm multiplying so I can divide both sides by 4. So now I have s is equal to 10 divided by 4. Again, pause the video if you need more time, which is 2.50. So, our answer then is 2.50. How much did they spend on each snow cone? $2.50. Number 18. Your dog gave birth to 6 puppies. You want to keep all of them, but you're told you have to sell all but one of them. If you earn $325, how much did each puppy cost? Of course you can solve this using arithmetic, but since we're practicing algebra, we want to set up an equation. So let's begin. There's 6 puppies, but we're only allowed to keep 1. So that means, how many puppies do we have to sell? Well, we have 6. We're allowed to keep just 1. So we have to sell 5 puppies. So to solve this, we'll write an equation. We have 5, our unknown is the amount that it costs, so that'll be x, is equal to our total, which is 325. So there's our equation. So now we can draw a line through our equal sign. We're multiplying, so we divide both sides by 5. Now we have 325 divided by 5. Take a minute to pause the video if you want to try this on your own. So on the side here, I'll write 5 and then 325. 5 can't go into 3, but 5 can go into 32 6 times. 32 minus 30 is 2. Bring down my 5. 5 goes into 25 5 times. So x is equal to 65. So how much did each puppy cost? $65. Number 19. Harry is making spaghetti and he went to the store and spent 38 dirhams. He bought 4 cans of spaghetti sauce for 22.25 dirhams each, 2 boxes of whole wheat pasta for 3 dirhams each, and a block of Parmesan cheese for 6 dirhams, and 4 pounds of ground beef. How much did each pound of ground beef cost? Of course we can solve this using arithmetic, but we want to set up an equation. So let's begin. So we have 4 cans of spaghetti for 2.25. So we have 4 times 2.25. We have 2 boxes of whole wheat pasta for 3 dirhams. 2 times 3. We have one block, or a block, of Parmesan cheese for 6 dirhams. And our unknown is 4 pounds of ground beef. So that's going to get the variable. And that's all equal to our total, which is 38 dirhams. So let's go ahead and simplify. So 4 times 2.25 is equal to 9. Next, 2 times 3 is equal to 6. Next, 1 times 6 is equal to 6. Our unknown is still there, so 4b is equal to 38. Next, we combine like terms. So we have 9 plus 6, which is 15. Continue to combine like terms. 15 plus 6, which is 21. Now I can't combine anything else. So now I notice that I have a two-step equation. I'll begin by subtracting 21 from both sides. And I'm left with 17 on the right side, and the 21 cancels out. I bring down my equal sign, and I bring down my 4b. Next, I have to isolate my variable by dividing both sides by 4. 17 divided by 4 is 4.25. So my beef cost 4.25 dirhams per pound. You go to the store and buy a 1/4 pound of cheese, the LB stands for pound, a half a pound of turkey, and some ham. If your total purchase was $4.50, how many pounds of ham did you buy? Let's start identifying important words. I notice it says 1/2 pounds of turkey. So then I know I need to multiply. So I have, and I'm also going to set up an equation here as well because we're practicing making equations. So I have 1/2 times turkey, which is 3, plus I have 1/4 of cheese, which is 2. I'm missing the amount of ham, but I know it's 250 per pound of ham, so I'll do 250 each, is equal to 450. Now I have my equation set up, so I can go ahead and solve. Before I do that, I have to simplify things that can go together. I'll begin with 1/4 times 2. 1/4 times 2 is actually 1/4 times 2 over 1. And multiply straight across. You get 2 over 4, which is equal to 1/2. That's the first part. So I can go ahead and cross off this part right here. Now let's rewrite what I have. I have 1/2 times 3 over 1 plus 1/2 plus 2.50h is equal to 450. Next, I'll combine these two things here. 1/2 times 3 over 1 is equal to 3 over 2 plus 1/2 plus 2.50h is equal to 450. To get 3 over 2, I multiplied 1 times 3 and 2 times 1 to get 3 over 2. Now since it says addition, and they're fractions, I look to make sure the bottoms are the same. I notice the bottoms are the same, so I can just add the tops. So I have 1 plus 3. I get 4 over 2. I'm going to simplify that to be 2 over 1, which is the same thing as 2. Once again, I'll rewrite what I have. I have 2 plus 2.50h is equal to 450. Notice what we have here now. We have a one-step equation. I'll begin by drawing a line through my equal sign and subtracting 2 from both sides. The 2's cancel out. I'm left with 250 on the right side. I rewrite my 250h on the left. Next, I have a one-step equation, so I'll divide by the number next to my letter. The left side cancels out. 2.50 divided by 2.50 is equal to 1. So h is equal to 1. So how many pounds of ham did I buy? I bought 1 pound of ham. A one-year membership at Vista Tennis Center costs $160. A registration fee of $28 is paid up front, and the rest is paid monthly. How much do new members pay each month? We want to set up an equation and solve for this example here, for the story problem. So let's begin. I notice that my total is 160, so I'll begin with that. I also know that my upfront cost is 28, so that's what I'm going to pay no matter what. Next, I can't figure out, because there's no other numbers in there, what my variable should be, what my unknown is. Do you see what my unknown could be in this problem? Well, if you looked and saw monthly, and you thought about how there's 12 months in a year, then you were correct. And also remember that we're trying to figure out how much they paid each month. And there's 12 months in a year. So I have 28 plus 12x equals 160. Now I have my equation set up. I'll begin by drawing a line through my equal sign and performing opposite operations. Since I'm adding 28 on the left side, I'll subtract. Whatever I do to one side of my equation, I do to the other side. On the right side, I get 132 is equal to 12x. Next, I need to isolate my variable by dividing both sides by 12. 132 divided by 12 is 11. X is equal to 11. So how much do new members pay each month? They pay $12 a month. One of the biggest things to remember when solving story problems like this is, does your answer make sense? So if the total cost is only 160 and you get an answer that is 170 or even 0.1 or some random decimal, and it does not add up or doesn't make sense, then you probably did something incorrect. Always check to make sure your answer makes sense. Last week, Carly had several rice cakes and 3 granola bars as snacks. The snacks contained a total of 800 calories. If each granola bar had 120 calories and each rice cake had 40 calories, how many rice cakes did she have? Create an equation and solve. Again, we can solve this using arithmetic, but we're going to solve this using equations since we're practicing algebra. The first thing I need to do is identify how many calories were in the 3 granola bars. That information is given to me. So I'll start by doing 3 times 120. Next, I notice that I have 40 calories, but I'm missing, what am I missing? Well, I'm missing the number of rice cakes. So I'll do that plus 40x is equal to my total, which is 800. Now I have my equation set up. I can go ahead and solve. Before I do that, I have to simplify things that are alike, or in this case, multiply. So 3 times 120 is 360 plus 40x is equal to 800. Next, I draw a line through my equal sign. Since I'm adding 360 on the left side, I need to subtract 360, cancel it out. If I subtract 360 over here, I have to subtract 360 over here. So now I get 440 equals 40x. Next thing I need to do is isolate my variable. Since I'm multiplying, I'll divide both sides by 40. On the side here I'll write 440 divided by 40. 40 can't go into 4, but 40 can go into 44 one time. I subtract, I get 4 remainder. I bring down my 0. 40 goes into 40 one time. 40 times 1 is 40. So I'm left with 11. How many rice cakes did they eat? They ate 11 rice cakes. Number 23. The school purchased football equipment and uniforms for a total cost of $1,836. The equipment cost $612, and the uniforms were $25.50 each. How many uniforms did the school purchase? Again, because we're practicing algebra, we want to set up an equation to solve this. So let's begin. The first thing I notice is my total, which is 1,836. The next thing I notice is my cost no matter what. So that's my constant. That doesn't change. Finally, I identify my variable, and the amount of uniforms purchased will vary. So I have 25.50x. Again, the x is what varies, the amount of uniforms purchased. Okay, so now we have our equation. Let's begin to solve. I'll begin by subtracting 612 from both sides. To get 1224. Next, I bring down my 25.50 with my x. After that, I'll isolate my variable like that. My 25s cancel out, and my 0.50s, of course. And now I have 1224 divided by 25.5. Take a minute and pause the video and see if you can come up with the right answer for this one. After working this out on my own, I came up with x is equal to 48. So how many uniforms did the school purchase? The school purchased 48 uniforms. Let's begin with number 24. Alice earns 1.5 times her normal hourly rate for each hour she works. After 40 hours in a week. She worked 50 hours this week and earned $660. What is her normal hourly rate? Well, we have 1.5, and the x is going to represent because we don't know how much she made per hour. Secondly, we had 40 hours in a week, and again, we don't know what her hourly rate is. That's going to be equal to 660. It's important for us to, before we continue, to realize that if she works 40 hours in a week, and she worked 50 hours last week, the 10 is going to be pretty significant because that's going to be the amount of extra hours she worked. Now we have our equation set up. Let's begin by multiplying. Remember, we're allowed to multiply things that aren't alike. So 10 times 1.5x, this is basically the distributive property, is equal to 15x plus 40x equals 660. Next, I combine like terms. Next, I can divide both sides by 55. $660 divided by 55. 55 can go into 66 one time. I get a remainder of 11. I bring down my 0. 55 can go into 110 two times. Remainder of 0. So what is her normal hourly rate? Well, her normal hourly rate is $12 per hour.